Welcome to the Femsplainers. I'm Christina Hoff-Sommers, just back from Australia.
I'm Danielle Crittenden, and welcome back, Sheila.
Oh, so good to be here.
I hear you had such a tough time, and it wasn't with dingoes or crazy snakes.
Those were an issue. On the plane, I had a lot of time. I didn't spend it wisely. I started researching dangerous threats that await you in Australia. And then I figured, okay, if I stay out of the ocean, because they have box jellyfish and these blue-ring stingrays, the most lethally dangerous animals in the world. You die a painful, agonizing death, and there's no antidote. No. And in the estuaries, you've got the crocodile. You've got dingoes in the outback. They have something called jumping jack ants, killer ants.
Oh, no.
So I don't want to go to the bush. So I think, okay, I'll stay in Sydney and take an Uber to the Opera House. No, there's the Sydney funnel web spider.
Except the biggest, most terrifying creature, if we can say that you faced was not anything from nature. It was Roxane Gay.
Well, and the militant feminists who follow her.
Oh.
And we had 1,000 people each night, but they came.
So tell us, start from the beginning. So tell people what you were supposed to do, like 2 appearances, right? Melbourne and Sydney, in theaters.
Yeah.
Go.
Well, it was supposed to be, so our host was this lovely guy who is from Sri Lanka. He reminded me of Dev Patel in the beautiful Hotel Marigold. He was full of enthusiasms. He was a romantic, and he thought it was going to be wonderful that we would have 2 women who were
Was
both...
he part of an organization?
Yeah, he's a sort of an impresario, and he organizes, he brings in academics and so forth. And he had great hopes. And so did I. I thought, okay, I was surprised she was willing to do it, because typically people of...
Can you just tell us who is the wrongly named Roxane Gay? Because it really sounds like she should be named Roxane Angry. Yeah. But can you just give us a little thumbnail sketch of who she is?
I don't want to say
what's her background?
Things, but it does have a tendency to... I mean, she could be fabulous because she's...
Was she an academic?
Yes. She has some kind of degree. I'm not sure. It wasn't clear to me what it's in. But she's a writer. She's very popular. She does a lot of different things. She writes science fiction, but she's written a book called Bad Feminist. But she's not really a bad feminist. She's kind of a hardcore down the line. And, every other thing is white supremacy, white male privilege, patriarchy. And I was trying to challenge that approach to the world, and it didn't go over well with her or her fans. And she sort of sat there and would look at me
on a stage in an opera, not the Sydney, the famous
in
opera
Sydney.
House.
We were in the beautiful Sydney Town Hall.
Okay, and 1,000 people.
1,000 people.
Wow.
But 800 of them did not like me. They left her, and they just, everything I said. They were stamping their feet. They were hissing. There were little...
You're going, are any of you snakes?
That's what I was going to say. I was like, are you sure that they were human?
All too human.
Eating out of their boxes of jellyfish. Their box
jellyfish. Sydney funnel web spiders. What could that be? A funnel web. Oh, anyway. No, but it turned out I didn't have to fear that. I had to fear the anger and irrationality. And I remained calm.
Did you have a drink?
I had, they brought me a Kir Royale.
Backstage.
Yeah. And it didn't matter. It did not go well from the beginning. Everything I said got a very negative response from the audience. And everything she said, just riotous applause and cheering. It was much easier on her, although, interestingly enough, she ended up being very angry at Desh, who was our moderator.
Yeah.
And she demanded that he not be the moderator in Melbourne. And she had
started in Sydney.
She didn't like it. Apparently doesn't want the tape released. I don't know why. I mean, she got a lot of cheering, and I was yelled at. But
maybe just the very fact he was a man?
No, I think she might regret some of her responses. Like I brought up, and he did too, the treatment of women in the developing world. And he had a little video he played where he showed women in Indonesia facing these street monitors who come up to them and tell them that they're their hijab or what their headscarf isn't covering enough of their hair, or that they have shoes that are pants are showing too much ankle.
We should have that on airplanes here. I'm just saying, when people come in shorts and a tank top.
Or feet. I don't want to see bare feet.
Sorry, digression. Go. Sorry.
No, there's some truth to that. But anyway, he showed it, and it showed very dramatically that there are parts of the world that are
and worse, where women are getting whipped and raped and
yes, and that
And what did she say? I think you told me this after you came home, that she had something like, we can't comment on other.
She said, "Well, I don't want to. We're not going to go in and tell them what to do." And I said, "No, Roxane, we're not telling them what to do." And I described these international women's conferences I've attended where you meet the women who are the leaders of the women's movement in, let's say, Saudi Arabia, or coming from Malaysia, coming from Cambodia. And I said, let's just make common cause with them, help them, and do what they're asking us. I made it very clear that I didn't think we should go there like Lady Bountiful and tell them what to do.
I say, my good man, do stop beating that lady.
And then she just didn't want to hear it. She said, well, Christianity is just as bad, and I said, well, I don't know of any Christian societies that are issuing fatwas. And, I mentioned like the Charlie Hebdo, and she seemed to be against the Charlie Hebdo. And I don't know. So she may not want that to come out.
She sounds like she was just against any interruption.
She's not used to being challenged.
Yeah.
So I think she perceived it as just out of order, and that this moderator was sort of neutral.
Yeah. Rather than...
And her fans just wanted to come and have a love fest.
Yeah.
And I got in the way.
Yeah.
Because I had a different point of view. So it did not go well. And
I never understand why the love fest, how it cannot be a love fest for you, Christina. I mean, you're just up there, you're so poised, you're polite, you're funny.
I even complimented her after she called
you a white supremacist.
White supremacist. Well, she changed it. She said white supremacist adjacent.
And then you said, you corrected her and said, I'm a white wine supremacist.
Yes, I said,
which you're not really. Which you're not really. You're more of a champagne supremacist. But
definitely a champagne supremacist. But so none of my jokes worked. I told her I was a white wine supremacist, and that just made people furious. That I wasn't taking it seriously.
If you were a real white supremacist, you would have taken it way more seriously and refused to go on a stage with her.
I couldn't joke, and I couldn't reason with the audience. Every point that I made, it just increased their wrath, and they were very angry at poor Desh, who was trying to make the best of it. Oh, so I was telling you, Roxane and her agent, who kept apparently calling Desh all night long, was saying, you have to have a new moderator. And they hand-picked an Aboriginal woman that she had met. And that was going to be our moderator. And I said, well, what's her name? Let me look her up. And I did look her up. She actually seemed fine, but I don't think she knew anything about.
But you can't do that. You can't just fire the person who's.
I said to him, I said, it's your event. She's agreed to come, and you're being man. Maybe you should just, So he clearly. I mean, I don't know what happened, but he ended up moderating in Melbourne as well.
Yeah.
And the grounds for firing him is that. Imagine that I think that she thought it was very unfair that he played that tape showing the oppression of women in Indonesia. Now, what could be more...
Because it makes her oppression look really lame.
Right.
Help, I'm being oppressed.
Yeah.
But what I remember, I was far away in Mexico City while you were fearing ants. I was eating ant larvae, which is a specialty in Mexico City. I'm sorry to hear It's
that.
like a very buttery risotto. And then they sprinkle little black bloated ants on top of it. I didn't try that, but
you did this out of your own free will?
No, I got dared because we were with someone who ate it. And if you dare me to do anything, I will do it.
Yeah, I
will
lost
jump
a bet.
off that bridge.
I lost a bet or did something. I lost something in a Mexican restaurant in Houston, Hugo's. And I had to eat a grasshopper. And
grasshopper is garnish on the...
Oh, I'll never forget it. It was oily.
Anyway, no, but there I am in Mexico City, and I'm following what's happening to you on Twitter. And the funniest thing I thought that I saw that came up, this did not resound well on your opponent. It was just a frozen screen of you on, I guess, Australian morning television or something, with you on one side, Roxane Gay on the other, and underneath you it said, the factual feminist, and underneath her it said, bad feminist. that title is not working for you, Roxane. The irony is not, coming through. But you said, I think the biggest reaction you got, like negative, because I'm assuming you didn't get big positive from what you're saying, is on rape instruction. There's this new study that has come out that shows if young women on campuses get self-defense instruction and prevention tactics, that it helps.
Absolutely.
And you got booed or something.
I tried to tell them, and actually I brought it up, not even to highlight the study, though I should have done. I brought it up to show that women are being harmed by this rigid ideology in feminism. It's so rigid, I said, that has the very unusual consequence of being effective and actually protecting women. If it doesn't match every little dogma in their catechism, they reject it. This study showed that with a 12-hour training, you could teach women to be more aware of their environment and to pick up cues that suggested danger so they could assess risk. And they learned a little self-defense. And they also did some exercises where they learned sort of to predict how they would react and how they should react. And they were able to define their sexual boundaries and be clear about that. 12 hours. And this study, this program, developed by two feminist researchers
in Canada, if I may say.
Yeah, Windsor University.
Yeah.
But it's been replicated. There's also University of Oregon had a similar team, a similar program.
Right.
And the New England Journal of Medicine reviewed it, and it passed. They had a very well-designed study and showed that young women that went through this program, it cut their risk in half of a kind of, sexual assault or predation of any kind. So I read about it. Not only did I think I would tell it definitely to my daughter, I wished I had it because it just made you, it just increased it was empowering, let me put it that way, in a very good way. Well, the audience in Australia, they went crazy. They were enraged.
What did they do? Did they
said
with rotten fruit?
They would have. And some people actually
Rubber
thought
dildos?
They thought there might be. They thought they might tar and feather me. And then Roxane got a riotous applause. She said, "No, we're going to just teach men not to rape. It's not women's responsibility." I said, "Of course, teach men not to rape." I said, "That's fine, but." 1% of the population are psychopaths and 2 or 3% sociopaths. You can't teach people not to be evil because some people are evil no matter what. And why not help women be prepared?
Right. We have to teach robbers not to rob. We have to teach,
Right. So when you cross the street, don't tell your child to look both ways. It's up to the drivers not to hit pedestrians. Well, there are some crazy drivers out there, no matter what. You tell your child, you give them the equipment. This is so elementary. Mm-hmm. They couldn't hear it. They did not want to hear it. And then they start tweeting madly that she said that men can just do whatever they want, but women have to learn not to be raped. No, I never said men can do whatever they want, but why not have a multifaceted program, be very clear with men, but also empower women. And actually, men could benefit from this because they can learn not to get into bad situations. Everyone should have a little bit of self-defense and, a capacity for risk assessment.
I actually, so we looked up this study that you were talking about, and it did say that the risk of rape for 450 women who were randomly assigned to this program was about 5%. Compared with nearly 10% among the 442 women in a control group who did not have this course.
It cut in half their risk for assault and so forth.
And then it said, the core of it was developed by feminists, and the core of it, and quoting one of the the women who developed it, said that young women had been taught just to be on guard against the stranger rapist, to fear the shadowy campus at night, the deserted parking lots, rape by an acquaintance or a romantic partner, which is far more common, is not a concept they had considered. So as you said, it was empowering. Like, obviously you don't walk across a shadowy campus at night all by yourself or without being highly aware. But we're getting into these situations where people are drinking too much, they're being taken advantage of.
And it's a lot of young women. It's the freshman year. It's their first parties.
Doing things you regret,
And this teaches them right away just to be more self-aware and just ready. And what I liked about it, one of the researchers said that it's the opposite of making women frightened, because mostly you can hang out with men. Most of them are fine. They're not going to hurt you. But there is that instance where you could be hurt, and there are some danger signs you should be aware of. If he's trying to isolate you and, plying you with alcohol, there's just several things to be aware that this could be a situation you don't want to be in.
Right.
Well, of course, young women should know that going off to college.
Well, but this is then to go to the criticism of it, which is what you encountered in a more violent way. Here's a quote of the criticism. It places the onus for prevention on potential victims, possibly obscuring the responsibility of the perpetrators, and it treats rape as an inevitable threat that women must guard against rather than something that men could be taught not to do. And that goes back, of course, to teaching robbers not to rob. But here's the other thing, the thing that really bothers me about this. I don't know if I ever told you this, but years and years ago when I was researching my first book, What Our Mothers Didn't Tell Us, available on Amazon, was I went to a lot of these campus rape crisis centers. So this would have been in the 90s. And that idea of a campus even having a rape crisis center was kind of a new idea. And you think, well, this is a wonderful thing to have, right? That there is resources now for women, places to go when they feel they've been harmed. Right. And I began to read the manuals. And honestly, it was like reading manuals from old, communism of the 1930s, where you are trying to take, say, the experience of the proletariat or a working class person and turn it into anger, right? Against the ruling class.
Right.
And when you read these rape manuals, it was taking something, one of the most horrible things you can imagine happening to you as a woman, and instead of saying, we need to get you help, we need to get you through this, we need to get you back to having healthy relationships with men, right? You would think that would be the goal.
Right, because there is no such thing.
But there was no, and it said once you have gotten, I remember this very vividly, one of the instructions to the counselors was, once you have got the woman through the immediate, 24-hour trauma of it, then you were supposed to start in making her aware of this. It's really about a power dynamic, that this could happen with anybody, any man, that this is the dynamic between the sexes, between your husbands, boyfriends. It was all about a male assertion of power. And as we've talked, we had Emily Yaffe on to talk about the Harvey Weinstein and other sort of sexual pathologies, that men who rape are not your average guy. Right. And most men don't,
And like I wanted to say to this audience, most men want what you want. They want love. They want tenderness. They don't want to hurt you. They want to make you happy. I mean,
and often be very protective of you, to sound old-fashioned. But
yes, absolutely. And men, I have found, are as horrified by rapists and brutal predators as women. And protecting ourselves from them is something men and women of goodwill can do together and have always done. But they want to make it into
But it's that politicization.
Gender war.
No, it's politicizing your experience.
Right.
And that is propaganda. That's not based on fact.
They've been doing it forever. And, I was thinking about it because there was such resistance that a lot of people will use sexual violence examples to forward their cause. I mean, not to make an example of our president, but when he wants to turn people against illegal immigrants and tell stories that demonize them. He talks about rapists on the border, and then he exaggerates the predation. And I've seen some people who want to demonize Muslims in Europe. They'll exaggerate the sexual predation and make it seem like.
And also that plays into the awful racial stereotype too. These are foreign men,
and of course we had it with lynching.
Yeah.
So people have to be very careful because people do react very emotionally, and they are, for good reason, repelled at the idea of a sexual transgressor. But I think it's very bad that it's, as you said, it's all been politicized, and people use it to. Maybe not deliberately, but they do manipulate others by these stories, these exaggerations. Right. And here's a study. Now, I will tell you, the New York Times reported on this new program, Vox, a New York magazine by feminist writers that wanted to be against it. But they became persuaded that this should be part of any responsible program. And I tried to convey that to the audience, but they were not open to the possibility, and the fact that I even brought up such a study was proof that I did not belong on the stage. That I was. Yeah.
Well, I mean, can you imagine also, as you say, it just goes against common sense about not even what you call street proofing your daughters. That I have 2 daughters. I remember a very funny story about my eldest daughter, Miranda. She lived, as you know, in Israel for 3 years, and she got very street-proofed in Israel. And she came home to visit family in Toronto, very polite Canadian, city. And she was at a turnstile when a very sketchy man came and approached her, a turnstile in the subway. And he started to come up to her and was getting way too close and was asking her for money. And she looked up and she saw 2 gentlemen seeing her in a little bit of,
trouble,
this situation. And they started to walk briskly towards her, clearly to help her out. At which point she went full Israeli on this guy.
What'd she do?
And she just went yelling at him and saying, "Get away from me. And your story makes no sense."
You know what? This program, that's what the program recommends.
And she said, he had been asking, I need it for this bus. She goes, "There is no such bus. Now get away from me." And by the time the men got up to her, they saw what was happening. Oh, she can take care of it. It's no problem.
Well, interestingly enough, one of the things the study suggests is that apparently a lot of women, when they're in an uncomfortable situation or a terrible situation, they get kind of quiet and weepy. Yeah. And it turns out the best thing to do is to be really loud and obnoxious and just.
It's like dealing with bears. Did you ever get those instructions in national parks about what to do when a bear comes up?
I know, but I would run.
But you're supposed to apparently,
I was in a situation. I was in Alaska on a crazy grizzly bear hike, and then I lost my fellow hikers. And actually, they abandoned me, but that's another story. And I was just walking along, and I was aware that I could be attacked and destroyed by a grizzly bear. So I started to bark because they don't like dogs. So when I'd go around to Ben, I'd go, "Rawr, rawr, rawr." I'm glad there's no film of that.
I think they should incorporate this knowledge into that course. So
about grizzly
girls,
bears.
Yeah.
Oh no,
girls.
No. Bears shouldn't attack. Don't teach. Don't teach. We just have to teach the grizzlies not to attack.
Especially when they're with their small children, their small cubs. You should be able to walk right up to that mother bear and stroke the cubs because they're cute. And why should she attack?
Why shouldn't you be able to do that? Why don't we have that freedom?
Right. Well, speaking of, I don't want to call it assault. When we were setting up, you said very eagerly you wanted to talk about Joe Biden. Now, let's just make sure we know that we're not a partisan podcast. We try to avoid politics, especially when the politics might be outdated by the time this podcast airs. So stipulate we're recording on Thursday and the podcast is going to be out next Tuesday. But that being said, you've had such an interesting reaction to this whole Joe Biden stuff. I want to hear about it.
Okay, initially I thought, oh, here we go again. Me Too gone too far. And I thought it'll be a good learning experience. Democrats will see that this is going to end. It's going to take out everybody. And all Joe was friendly and, a little overly demonstrative. And so I was, on his side. And I guess I kind of liked him. And I welcome him as a candidate because we're not going to talk politics, but I did welcome him. And I thought maybe we just need an old-fashioned moderate Democrat. And it was terrifying to me that, like Al Franken, he was going to be thrown out just because they keep enlarging the meaning of sexual harassment to include things that are just boorish behavior or silly behavior. However, a friend of mine sent me some compilations of videos. Have you seen them?
No.
Okay. Brace yourself.
Uh-oh. Is it X-rated? Is it Joe Biden
it's
unleashed?
He's a weird dude. Yeah. And he's obsessed with sniffing women's hair and the hair of little girls. And he's feasting on all these women. I'm now beginning to think maybe he became a politician and maybe he focused a lot on women's issues so he could have all these highly structured events where he gets to, graduations where you get to hug people. But
he's always hugging from behind, isn't he?
Yeah, because he wants to get to the hair. He's obsessed with the hair, so initially the woman. No, I could be wrong, and I am willing to be corrected.
I know now that you say it, even without watching the video, that all the pictures where women are objecting, it's like he kissed the back of my head, right?
And there's a little girl, beautiful little girl, and then you could see him thinking, and then when am I going to go in? And then he goes in. And it's I don't know what.
Okay, well let's just say it's a hair fetish. That's
right.
Not even sexual. Does he do this with waves of male locks?
No, I have not seen it.
Yeah.
It would be disturbing if it were males, but with the women, I think there might be something just a little. What is the word we would use? It's not violation. It's definitely creepy. Yeah. But it's something more than creepy. I think it's
like a fetish.
Kinky.
It's kind of fetishy.
And that I think he kind of enjoyed that he could do it in public.
Yeah.
With impunity.
Yeah, because he's Uncle Joe, at least for me, people in my generation really like Joe Biden, especially girls. People, and when you think of Parks and Rec, like Leslie Knope, her obsession with Joe Biden on that show, I think made him sort of the superstar. Oh. So I think it's weird for me to watch it because I was a big fan of his. But I would think about if someone I really admired who was a man did that to me, I think.
Well, let's just say, maybe it's a weird fetish, not meant to be harassing, whatever. The problem that the Democrats have now is having made Al Franken resign.
Right. That was their mistake.
Because now,
because this isn't as serious, but in a way,
maybe it's weirder.
But it might be. I think it's much more worrisome because it's perverse and odd, and he got away with it. And I think he must have known that he was able to do it. He would just feast on these women and these occasions.
And it doesn't mean he's not. I mean, he seems like. I've watched interviews with him. I have the same reaction. He's like this incredibly compassionate, thoughtful, decent man who's had the worst of
bad luck,
brought upon
horrible tragedies.
Horrible tragedies.
He's also a blowhard. And he talks too much. There's a story I can't confirm, but that he was
a mansplainer.
No, terrible. And that Obama was. Former President Obama was at some luncheon. He wasn't sure who the speaker was, and it was going to be Joe. And he said to the guy next to him, "Just kill me now." And when he gets up to speak, he goes on and on obsessively. And I think he's a problematic figure. I think he's not going to.
Yeah. Well, we knew these stories were going to come out because these are long-standing.
They've been around.
But I worked in a newsroom in the 80s, and the stuff that Al Franken did. I mean, at that time he was a comedian.
See, that was
on
funny.
A USO. I mean, it was, as you say, it was boorish. But that happened all the time. And maybe in retrospect, we can look back and go, okay, that was a stupid joke. But if somebody had done that to me, and that was, for those of you who don't remember, he was posing and he was with a female performer and a photographer on this USO tour. USO, he's entertaining the troops.
Yeah. And it's burlesque. I mean, there's a lot of
and he and the
risque
woman
humor.
Got along fine, and she was asleep one time, and he posed with his hands as if on her breast for the photographer, and they're doing their goofy, hey, look at this while she's asleep. But he wasn't touching her. And it was stupid, fine. But to lose your Senate seat over that? Or it was
pathetic. And I blame
sad.
Senator Gillibrand.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce her name?
Yeah.
It suddenly sounds strange. What a strange name. I think she took him out. And I think that, and so this bothers me too about Biden, because I do think it might be the Sanders campaign that's promoting it, and
well, and Klobuchar and all of them have a lot of reason to get behind that rumor. But
he's leading. He's leading in the polls.
Yeah, no, but that's right. So his own opponents will play dirty with him. But unfortunately, this is being hoisted on your own petard problem. Is having made the Franken rule the precedent.
Right.
I don't know how. Well, we like him. We think he's got the best chance of winning. That doesn't.
There's even more to it. Joe Biden himself was an enabler of the most kind of hysterical feminist politics, and he, for example, those new rules that were imposed in that Dear Colleague letter were imposed on the universities in 2011.
Can you say what that was?
Yeah.
So,
so what they did was they sent out this Dear Colleague. And
who was they?
The Department of Education.
Yeah.
But he was a part of it. And he was there for the ceremony, very much behind it. And these new rules made it, so basically took away due process from young men. And it all had to be like victim informed. And what that meant was the young man would be presumed guilty. They enlarged the meaning of harassment. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court had defined it as, severe, pervasive, obnoxious behavior that makes it impossible for you to get an education. They changed it to just anything that made you uncomfortable. And so they couldn't be off-color jokes. You could be brought up on a Title IX charge if you made a woman uncomfortable with just about anything. So it was terrible for free expression, and it was terrible for due process, and it was Joe Biden's work. Mm. And so now you say about being hoisted on your own petard. Yeah. He created a monster, and that monster is now devouring him.
And that monster is now called hair sniffing. That's not going to be allowed. Hey, didn't you tell me just quickly, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
I want to tell you that I have taken a picture. You were asleep in a plane, and there's a picture of me, but I won't post it.
I knew it. No, you've taken a picture of me
asleep,
doing my party trick. I call this my party trick, Christina.
She does fall asleep at dinner parties at the table.
Not always.
At her
only
own
if you're
parties.
boring me, darling.
And I say to guess, oh, she always does that. Carry on.
Wait, just like head down on the table?
Yeah, it's sort of like, what's that? That's when people fall asleep, like automatically.
Narcolepsy?
Yeah, it's like, but it's not.
You just get
you'll
bored?
bore me.
You just get bored?
No, it's when I've had a lot of wine, I just subtly drift off. And you say you do protect me, and
you know what? You look beautiful. I have to say, I will post the photo.
We can't. No, we'll not post that photo, and I won't post the photo of you doing bad things. But last thing before we leave this topic, because it sort of sums up what we've been saying. You said at this event
with Roxane Gay
that a woman had said a man kept asking her to have sex.
Oh God! I was so okay.
Tell that last story.
So I'm triggered by this. There's a woman who stands up. This is in Melbourne, and she just wanted to tell me how upset she was by everything I'd said, because she said I am a rape victim, and I felt bad for her, and I was immediately thinking, well, how could she not know that I want to do everything I can to protect women from rape, but somehow that.
But she said it in a sinister way, directed at you.
At me. And I wait. But she kept talking and talking. And then as she talked, she said, yes, I was raped. I was in college. And I'm a survivor. And my trauma, has haunted me since then. And she kept talking. And then she proceeded to describe the rape. And she said, yes, and, it was this guy, I think he was her boyfriend, but he just kept asking me for sex, and he kept wanting it and whining about it and carrying on, and I just eventually gave in. That was her rape. That he
You said
I was thinking, like, that sounds like a lot of married sex. But I didn't say it, even though it's kind of true.
at that.
Come on, marrieds out there, one, and it could be a different person sometimes, but sometimes people whine and want, and the other's like, not in the mood. We won't go there. But that's what she described, but she calls that rape. And then I thought other people in the audience would think, what the hell? That wasn't. No, they were like, oh, so sorry for her.
It's a good thing I wasn't there with you, Christina, because I know what my problem is, not that I would fall asleep during that thing, although I might have, was, me, when you and I would go and do these talks together, and you would always be the good cop, and somebody would do something like that, and then
You
they
would
would
have
just
you would have launched.
I would have said, "Sounds like marriage," and then just taken the flying dildos.
Well, you know what?
And the
I've
rotten
made.
fruit.
I am now taking a vow. I shall not travel. I shall not do these venues without my co-splainer.
Yeah.
I need you there. I don't want to be alone on the stage and take all the wrath of. Stipulate. I think a lot of unbalanced people who have latched on to this ideology is just a way to organize their own madness.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to set you off again. I'm moving topics. Just to alert our listeners, we have so much to catch up on post-spring break that we're not having a guest this week. So
We're our own guests.
we're our own guests with Zoe, of course, who was, by the way, in Madrid.
I was.
We
I
were
wasn't
both speaking Spanish.
Yeah, I actually wasn't in Madrid that long. We went all over Spain.
Did you go to Barcelona?
Barcelona.
Oh, no, you don't say
Barcelona.
Barcelona. That's how it's pronounced by.
The Catalan.
You
Yeah.
say. Did you go to a bullfight?
No.
Do they
It's not
still
the
have it?
season. And I don't think they
never
have
go
them.
I would never go. I think they're so cruel and brutal and horrible.
Well, you
I
know-
would like to go to one, though. I mean, it might be interesting.
No, Hemingway's just romanticized
Well,
them.
No, I think it's primitive and brutal.
I feel like you guys would be happy about this then. They changed one of the historic bullfighting rings in Barcelona into a shopping mall now.
Oh, I thought you were going to say into like a center for grief.
Bull
and-
petting.
and
No.
a
mall.
petting zoo.
It's literally a mall.
Bull petting soon.
You know what? If they didn't have to kill the bull, that would be better. Just to have them run
A
around.
little dance, a little.
I like the matadors, though.
Yeah, well, Christina.
And I met a cute guy in Australia, too.
Oh,
Never mind that. He gave me a tour of Sydney.
Oh, how old?
I have photos.
How old?
No, he could be my son.
Oh, yeah, well.
Well, I looked up what a funnel web spider was, and I doubt
Not
it
like
was
a
that.
funnel cake.
No, it's this really terrifying, like thick, leathery black
Thick.
spider that makes its webs literally are like a long cylinder. So when things get caught in it, they can't.
But I'm still with the box jellyfish. Funnel spiders like funnel cake. Like, can't you just see the audience for Roxane Gay eating jellyfish and spiders? Okay.
Kind of right.
Okay, so we're going to catch up on one last story, and then we had so much fun listener reaction while we were away, including, I think, Zoe, like one or two people who, again, unwisely wrote in asking for advice.
Yeah, the worst advice on the web. The worst advice on the web. Come to
I
us.
feel like we're going to ruin any marriages with the questions that we have.
I mean,
this
that
time
answer to the
around.
married couple. And you and David practically broke them up.
Well, no, I think we brought them together. The Romeo and Juliet
They did. They
syndrome
united against you.
in England. So, one of the stories that caught my eye while we were away was the spacesuit saga, Spacesuit Gate. Did you see this in your travels?
Did.
This is
And I think we're going to have different reactions. So this may be part of the podcast where you're going to play the part of Roxane Gay.
oh, thanks.
And you're going to be all like, oh, the
throw your
patriarchy doesn't have spacesuits that fit us.
Does this spacesuit make me look fat? Yes. All spacesuits make everybody look fat.
That's one issue. They're not very cute. They're puffy.
They look like marshmallows.
They do.
Anyway, okay, so here's the spacesuit problem. The first all-female spacewalk was canceled because there weren't enough of the correctly sized spacesuits. They apparently had 2 women who needed medium-sized, but they only had 1 medium-sized. Hey, we've all faced that, right? Especially when you and I shop, Christina.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I don't. I don't grab the first.
Anyway.
Sometimes it's you, sometimes it's me. We buy the same clothes.
I know. But anyway, NASA, the spokeswoman said they didn't have 2, so in this case, it was easier and faster to change spacewalkers than reconfigure the spacesuit. And of course, they changed spacewalkers with a man so that all-female spacewalk didn't go off. And then the reaction, I'm reading now from the Washington Post, across social media platforms, women told of giant overalls, wading boots that were the wrong size, oversized gloves that kept them from being nimble, a lack of bulletproof vests that accommodated their chest sizes, and a dearth of petite-sized personal protective equipment at construction sites. I work in an ambulance where everything from the driver's seat to the latch on the cot is made for your average-sized man, tweeting one woman based in Canada. I know.
Okay. Can I just stop?
No. I know this intimately and felt an angry pit of experiential empathy in my stomach when I heard about this spacewalk cancellation. So we had talked about this issue a few episodes back with Carolyn Criedo, about her.
Yes,
Carolyn Criedo Perez, who's the author of Invisible Women, Exposing Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. And she just argued, this story sums it up, that there are many, many professions and situations that are all calibrated to the average male, she would say the average white male, and women, again, lose out. So, Christina, isn't this sad? Aren't you upset about this?
Okay, I'm taking a deep breath. And I just want to say,
you size supremacist.
No, it's so much kvetching. Mm-hmm. And, okay, ladies, all these ladies that took to social media, if it's a real problem, start a website and sell, unusually sized materials for women. Make it a business if it's an issue. Why always complain and whine? They didn't make it for us. Now, here's this NASA thing. First of all, the big story here is that there are so many women in the space program and that they could have an all-women team. And everything has to be a first. We already had a woman in space with Sally Ride. When did she go in? 83. We've had women in space, but this is 2 women in space. So we have to so it's a sacred moment. No, it's not. And they just had to put in a guy, so it was a guy and a girl, and a guy and a lady in space, and then they'll have the 2 women later. It was postponed. And the reason that they didn't have a suit is she had trained in a large suit, wanted it, and then at the last minute realized that she should have a different size suit, and they weren't just ready at that moment. So this becomes, a huge issue of gender discrimination. No, it's women kvetching, and then, I read one quote that said something about how NASA has been making this is a good thing, that NASA has been making a concerted effort to improve diversity. Its 2017 astronaut class had 5 women and 7 men. Now, that is fantastic.
Houston, we have an angry astronaut. Houston, get us out of here.
Houston, we have a big problem. She's mad. No, but let me finish my point.
Okay.
But situating this event in context makes clear that in a field historically dominated by men, there are myriad ways for bias to manifest. Yes, it's dominant. Men invented it. And you go back, I think everyone should serve penance and go watch the film First Man, which is about the NASA mission in 1969, July.
With very cute Ryan Gosling, who is a Canadian.
Who's kind of a hot dude. But anyway, so the lunar landing...
That's not appropriate.
Then this was in 1969, and it's almost all men. I'm sure there were some women there, but they got this. They did this mission. They had hardly any computers. They did it. the ingenuity, the beauty.
Well, it's like Tom Wolfe, The Right Stuff, that these men just who had been fighter pilots in World War II would sit themselves on the top of rockets and agree to be blasted into space.
Basically, who had the right. No, why can't we be grateful once in a while? And yeah, men did this. And so a lot of it is based on their metrics. And then you just adjust and you fix. And women are joining men. They're the ones that put themselves out there and take the incredible risks. And they have these extraordinary feats of ingenuity. I would like to see women do that, and maybe they will. That could change, and maybe the next generation will. It'll take a while. But why do we have to have this attitude?
Anger. Okay, I agree with you on that. I'm just looking at
I wanted to push back. I wanted to bicker.
Okay, I'll bicker. But I was going to say, I was reading like today, it says, only 15% of NASA's planetary mission science team members are women, and that doesn't include Sigourney Weaver. But you could also say, only 15% of NASA's planetary mission team is women, and they haven't yet made all the suits. So I think this is a conflated, somebody really screwed up.
I think
actually, you know what? No, it's not. I mean, I agree with you. Why does this was clearly whoever didn't order and make sure there were enough suits for this historic moment should be demoted, fired, whatever. But turn it into this, stop being angry, for gosh sakes. Just
see that this is a question.
With you on that.
This is a question I asked myself with Roxane Gay.
I want to be gay.
And you know what I said? I was worried she was going to drop out of the second debate. And so I couldn't talk to her directly. We were at the Melbourne airport. We were at the Sydney airport on our way to Melbourne, and he was going back and forth.
Did you have to sit next to her?
She was behind me.
Ooh.
Because we were in first class.
Did you put your seat back?
When I did, and then I thought, I hope this isn't an issue. She'll be mad at me. Sometimes people get mad behind, but it was no. So Desh was going back and forth, and I said, here's what I want you to tell her. I said, and I meant this, that men who disagree with each other are able to go on tour. So you've had like Robbie George go with Cornel West, and they disagree on everything. But they are intelligent, and they are humane people, and they have a discussion. I said, tell her, there are no women. Can you think of any women that would go around debating? Just tell me. I want to know who they are.
The only ones I can think of are like Hoda and Kathy Lee on the Today shows.
Don't they agree on everything?
Yeah.
I guess there's the View women, but those come to like catfight bloodbaths.
Right. That's true.
Like, I don't think they talk to each other offset.
And they actually do fight. Now one of them is one who was on there has written a book and needed therapy, having been on The View.
Because we can't take women. Women are natural. And I used to find this, my first realization that this kind of healthy argument or disagreement didn't fly amongst women was when I became a new mother. And I went to, you go to these mommies groups, and they're not composed of people you would naturally select as friends. They're composed of people who have kids the same age as yours and are nearby. And your kid maybe likes their kid, but you have to be there because, you can't just drop your 1-year-old off. And I remember being that opinionated person.
Oh yeah,
but not about politics or anything.
Just about anything.
It was like pacifiers,
Right.
And then you'd say,
by the way, I love them.
I love them. I'd say that, and they looked at you like you just said you love smoking.
I couldn't have gotten through
cigarettes or something.
Oh, no.
And
I like it. I like a pacifier.
But then they wouldn't debate you. Like
they just thought you were weird.
No, they'd all go silent, and then somebody would shift uncomfortably, and then the subject would change. And then another female friend of mine who also had the similar misfortune of saying direct things like I did, she said, "Oh, they put you in the mad woman's corner, didn't they?" And that was her phrase, that whenever you had a woman who was, opinionated or whatever, they agreed after the first few uncomfortable times that you erupted with these strong opinions. They would say, "Oh, that's just Danielle.
Right.
She's mad,"
right.
And that was the way they coped and so as women, we experience it, right? I think women. I think this is why feminism affects so many women.
Okay, but I just want to ask,
take conflict.
Yeah, they can't take conflict.
But did you also notice when we were young mothers that only mothers could be friends with other mothers? You couldn't have like a working mother, full-time working mother in the playgroup.
Oh yeah, those were the mommy wars.
Those are the days of the mommy wars. I think they still exist. They're just like guerrilla style now.
It's
like
gone
we don't talk
total
about
guerrilla,
them.
and it's online on Twitter.
But women need parity in their friendships and relationships with other women. And I don't know why. I've actually got a bunch of theories, which I will not bore you with now, lest you put me in the mad woman
Do you think
corner.
this could have some reason? I'm not saying it, but everything like you're saying now and acting out a little bit at baby groups. Could this be the reason for your low rating with Uber drivers?
Stop. You said you would never bring that up.
Oh,
O is low.
Oh, I
Danielle.
can't believe you brought
no,
this
because
up.
I have not a perfect rating because
You have a 4.9.
yeah, but I don't have a.
I do too.
This
But
is
that's
like
because
talking
I
about
take
your
Izzy,
SAT
and
score.
sometimes the drivers don't like having a dog, and so I have a 4.9 because of Izzy. But you have
Okay, so I was in Los Angeles visiting my daughter, and I got into an Uber, from her house late at night. We'd had some wine, obviously, and I got in the car, and I had this fabulous gay LA driver, and I sat in the car, and the first thing he said to me is, "Why is your Uber rating so terrible, my dear?" It was just like this over-the-top casual guy, and I went, "What?" And he said, "Yes, you are 4.6." And now I was horrified.
4.6?
Okay, totally, yeah.
Wait, that doesn't sound bad to me.
No, apparently it's terrible. And then I told my kids this in stupefaction. And because I feel I'm always very polite, and and then they said, "Mom, when an Uber driver goes the wrong way, do you correct him?" I said,
of course.
"Yeah, Mom, I've seen you correct an Uber driver."
I have to.
I was expecting you to say like a 2.5 or something.
No, but 4.6 is terrible.
It's terrible because there's great inflation.
No, but then I've just been on this. It is like a Larry David exercise where now I am simpering now whenever I get in an Uber, and if they go the wrong way, I don't say anything. And now I keep now obsessively checking my Uber rating, and it still hasn't gone up.
You know what you have to do? And
What?
When you
Bake
get out of the
cookies?
No, I know. Here's how I keep up my
And
score.
I tip.
Yeah, but they don't. I tip, but they don't see it until afterward. What I do is I say 5 stars, great ride, 5 stars, and they go, "Oh, thank you." They love to hear that.
Okay. All right. I'll work on that. But yeah, now I've got a Larry David-like campaign to boost my Uber rating.
All right, everybody, let's
According to Ride Guru, anything below a 4.5 requires caution.
So I'm still above caution.
But it says certain drivers are told not to pick up passengers below a 4.8 when it's busy or at airports.
Oh, I'm being discriminated against.
Well, for drivers, if you're at a 4.6, you are at the
You get
risk of
fired.
being deactivated.
Right.
So
But I mean, come on. This is like we now have to tiptoe if somebody's going, and you've had those drivers where they have no idea, like they've just started.
Oh, I've had them. They come down from Baltimore to D.C. They don't know anything, and then they resent getting directions. But I just go on my iPhone. I don't watch it. And then I tell them they're getting 5 stars.
All right, let's open up listener feedback, and then we'll get ready for the new. I guess we're going to be entering season 4. In May will be our 1-year anniversary, and I'll look up. I have to look up which exact day that was.
Can we go to Paris for that?
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, Zoe will come back. We'll go to listener reaction, and then look forward to the new season with great guests.
sounds good.
Okay, Zoe, so what is our listener reaction that has collected in front of the studio door while we've been away?
Actually, we did get physical mail.
We got physical mail. Oh, we did.
I put it in your pile.
That you did. That
I have
was
it.
lovely.
A beautiful card.
We received a beautiful card that had a drink recipe on the inside. It was done
amazing.
in beautiful cursive. We love physical fan
Who
mail.
was
It's
that
very
from?
fun. I cannot remember her name. It's on the card.
Okay.
We'll find it.
Put
Okay.
me in charge.
Okay, we'll find it.
We'll find
Find it.
We'll
It'll
find it.
emerge.
Yeah, but thank you.
Yes. So we got tons of listener feedback on our break. We also got some listener feedback from some fans down under. Oh, here we go. We have her name.
Rachel Durr.
Her name is Rachel.
Oh,
Wait a minute, Rachel Durr? I think I know her father.
You should read
Never
that.
mind.
whole
Maybe
world.
it's my lost.
We'll put
my
it on
daughter.
Instagram. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay, so we did get some feedback from an Australian listener who didn't know if you had left or not, but I'm going to read you what he said. He said, "Hi, Femsplainers. By now, Christina is probably in Australia, so I hope you're enjoying the trip. But as a native Aussie, I have to mansplain one thing. At the end of your most recent episode, you mentioned Australia's deadly animals with some anxiety. Now, granted, we do have the world's most venomous snake, spiders that can ruin a good day, saltwater crocodiles, and even a deadly seashell.
A seashell?
But I must take a lead from my expat Californian friend and point out that we don't have bears, wolves, mountain lions, coyotes, rattlesnakes, alligators, black widow spiders, or school kids on psych meds with handguns. I love the show. Thank you very much, from your mansplainer down under."
Actually, we call you a Bruce-splainer down under.
So we got a lot of requests for advice.
Okay, people, what is our,
Yeah, we need a disclaimer.
we need a disclaimer.
Like, we are not licensed to give anyone advice.
And if
She's
you are-
had, I don't know, like a half a bottle of.
I have not had a half bottle of whiskey.
Well, all right, I had a half, but Dubonnet goes faster.
I am on my second scotch. So, yeah, this is the perfect time to give
Perfect
relationship advice.
Yeah.
So we'll start with a relationship one then.
Okay.
So, this gentleman writes to us and says, "Hello, I am a 24-year-old conservative male who finds many of your ideas refreshing compared to those often spouted by my generation. I just listened to your episode on how do you know he or she is the one, which was the one with Isaac. And he says, I believe my friend, who is his ex-girlfriend from high school, may be the one. We mutually rekindled our friendship 3 to 4 years after breaking up a month into college. And we talk regularly. We see each other a couple times a year. I still have romantic feelings for her, and she has proven to be a comfort zone for me. However, I don't think she has the romantic feelings that I do, and I may have ended up in the, quote, gay best friend or brother level of the friend zone. What should I do now? Do I just come out and say my feelings the next time I see her? And if she's not interested, should I break off the friendship?"
Oh my God. My mind is blank. What do you say?
I have a strong
I know
reaction.
she'll have advice.
And it's probably the worst advice, but I'm gonna say it. We're not allowed to talk about men taking initiative in these situations because that's somehow sexist. But what I always tell our young men that we talk to is they're in the driver's seat. Women, despite everything, want to be with a man who takes initiative, who woos her, who sweeps her off her feet. Now, it may be that this woman does not see you as a romantic possibility, and you have everything to lose on this. But why not find out, right? Like if you're just going to sit there and struggle, what kind of man are you? What's his name? Sorry.
We don't know.
She may be wondering why he doesn't.
So
but however, it could be a disaster, and Danielle's setting you up for a harassment charge.
But then, no, don't harass her. Obviously, I would plan something really nice, make a dinner, ask her out, and then you don't have to confess your feelings in some wimpy way. But compliment her. Say something like, we've known each other for so long. Think of a dialogue, but
I know a safe. I have a safe plan.
Thing he would say?
Because I'm only thinking like awkward situations I was in where, okay, go to a movie together.
Yeah.
And then try to sort of hold her hand. And then if she...
No, that gets creepy. If the woman doesn't want it...
No, that you find out. If you want a guy to touch you, you'll hold his hand.
No, but then you get into Joe Biden problems. I would say go to dinner and then say, we've known each other a long time, blah, blah, blah. I really like you. And however, I can't give you the script off the top of my head. But however way.
Ask her to go steady.
Ask her to go steady.
What happened to that? Give her a St. Christopher.
No, just say, I really have feelings for you and I would like, are they shared or not? And if not, I will never
make things weird. Yeah.
I will never raise this again.
Right.
But you have to know, right?
Yeah.
Joey, do you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Flush it out?
Because I think it puts strain on a friendship then. If you're always there wondering and then, maybe if it comes to the point where you accidentally do something that might make her uncomfortable, you want to sort of so you're not suppressing the feelings all the time.
Right. And he's not really
about
interested in having her as a friend. It sounds like he either wants to date her or not. So cut to the chase.
Or he could ask her.
Be commanding.
In a nice way, he could just say, "Oh, I want to kiss you so much. Can I?" He could ask her.
Right. Yeah. But I think isn't this you're the one warning me against me
approach.
too.
I'm not. No, I'm not saying he grabs her.
You just would want to be swept off your feet and have that
No,
man
I've had people
say,
ask.
I can't resist you any longer, Professor Summers. I need to kiss
A
you.
Rhett Butler just grabbing you and running up the stairs, and the next day you're a real.
No, don't do that.
That is actually kind of a shocking scene, retrospectively. And I once defended.
Houston, don't listen to that.
Don't listen.
But I think you can force it, but you have to do it in a commanding and manly way.
And do it, and if she's someone that's in your comfort zone, that you're very comfortable around each other and you know her well, do it in a way that if she was talking to you about a relationship with a man, she would not be weirded out.
Right, and give her an out. Give her a very respectable, easy out.
Yes.
Right.
And note also that people change. Someone that you weren't interested in, you could become,
Right, it could be a Harry met Sally situation.
Yeah, right.
Harry met Sally.
But keep us posted on what happens.
Yeah, keep us posted. Right back. Okay, next one.
Okay. So this one is...
One relationship ruined. Next one.
Well,
He's going to be brought up on...
These are now some
harassment.
parenting ones, so maybe this will be not
less fraught.
I don't know.
So this actually comes from one of Christina's former research assistants, Laura. She was a philosophy major in your class of 92.
Oh, yes.
And
my research assistant.
She says, I was Professor Summers' Zoe before Zoe was in utero.
Oh, boom.
It's true. I can't
Pulling
fight
rank.
that.
Wow.
But it also says, if Zoe ever thinks that Professor Summers is high maintenance, imagine what it would be like if you didn't have email. I write in jest, but seriously, I have written hundreds of, quote, regards Christina notes. I had her signature down to an illegible squiggle.
Oh, yeah, she wrote all my replies and things. Because I had
I don't think we should admit this.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, her question is unrelated, but she says, do you have any advice for parents of high school boys who are looking at college? And this is specifically Christina. Have your views on liberal arts education evolved? And what do you make of those wacko parents who model cheating to get their children into prestigious schools?
Oh, well, those parents are shocking.
We'll give the advice about the liberal college.
Okay, the liberal college. So I can, first of all, tell you college is to avoid like the plague.
Okay. Let's do the plague list.
Sarah Lawrence.
We're coming up
Sarah
to
Lawrence,
Passover.
where...
We're coming up to Passover, so we can do the...
Yeah, well, the plagues. Okay.
The plagues.
Haverford, Sarah Lawrence, Bryn Mawr, Evergreen State. I would also add Oberlin. I would add Bennington.
I guess the liberal arts, when I think of it from like a St. John's perspective, right, with like the classical books and like reading the
That doesn't sound like a lot of fun, St. John's.
No, but I think of what the traditional liberal arts education is supposed to be. I think that's probably closer to it.
Yeah, that is closer to it, but I'm just trying to think of the perfect school where I would send a kid nowadays.
Well, let me ask you a broader question.
And not Swarthmore either.
Since you've gone through the plagues. Do young men really have to worry about this problem, or is it exaggerated, as your son Tamler is always telling you? Like, it's not Twitter. Yeah, there are bad incidents. Yeah, there are some bad campuses, as you've listed, but most kids are going to college and they're not getting accused of sexual assault.
No, I mean, you'd have to be.
You have to deal with a certain amount of political correctness on campus.
And I think we just have gone back a little bit. Like, pretend you're living in the Victorian era, and you have to be an absolute gentleman, and should be fine. So, we can look at it in a positive way. Is it was just, the sexual revolution is over. We're going back to where there were ladies and gentlemen, and we must observe all the decorum. I wouldn't have liked that. I wanted to be wild, but here we are.
Spoken as the hippie.
Yeah, the hippie. But fine. But so where do you go? I'm going to kind of agree with Danielle that most schools, probably even Sarah Lawrence, maybe not Sarah Lawrence. No. That was too far gone. There are just too many freaks. So my advice is to be careful of some of the very, very precious liberal arts colleges. Yeah. And, the more expensive, the more you should be on your guard. But if you go to a big state university, you will find...
Yeah, there's lots of groups. The bigger the college, really, the
better.
The more. And Nat, as you know, our son, an audio editor, went to Swarthmore, and he ended up just doing things like joining a frat. Like, he just had to find his own
And he
space.
made great friends.
And he made great friends. And so I think this idea that, these colleges, let's call the colleges predatory on male students. I think that can be a little bit overblown. And look, I'm in the college. I spent half of spring break touring colleges with our youngest daughter, who's getting ready, and they're great. I mean, there are a lot of good colleges. They're way overpriced.
They're run like the expensive colleges are like 5-star hotels, resorts.
And they're like offering incredible programs. I was touring with her and I was like, can I sign up? Can I go to this college?
I would like to go to college. I mean, not with today's rules, but it would be so fun. And you know what? You can get a degree in dog training now.
Really?
Yeah. I love that.
I think you need that degree. All right, next question.
All right, so this is our last advice request. This comes from not so much a parent, but an aunt or aunt.
Auntie? Okay.
I'm an auntie, and you are?
I'm an auntie.
Well, she is a parent, but she has questions about
problematic.
Okay. So she says, "Hi, ladies. I absolutely love the podcast. I'm a suburban mom of 3 great boys, and I am absolutely terrified of sending them out into our current world. I keep them busy with sports and away from girls. That's my current philosophy, but I know it won't work forever. I do have a question for you, though. My 14-year-old niece has been completely indoctrinated in the intersectional feminist philosophy, as she spent many years in Berkeley while my brother was getting his PhD. She is constantly sharing woke but intolerant posts on Instagram. I'd love to engage, but I resist. She's not my daughter, and I don't want to start a family feud. However, I would like to comment with some little kernels of wisdom to maybe broaden her thinking. Any suggestions on how to approach this?"
Oh, my God.
14.
Because I actually have a similar problem with my whole family. Starting with Tamara.
I have wisdom from my children where I will get exercised about something like that on Facebook. And they just said, "Mom, don't be that person who comments on Facebook."
Yep.
Right.
And that just, ever since they said that.
And I will add something, which is I do have people very close to me, my own sons. And
are you listening,
my
David
niece,
and Tamara?
Vanessa, the vegan in Portland artist. But the fact is, I love them so much.
Why can't we all just get along?
They kind of know that I'm not, well, my sons aren't as wild as Vanessa, but the family gets together and everyone loves each other and kind of knows certain topics might not be popular with the whole group, but we have fun. And I think I tried to tell the Roxane Gay audience that half my family, very, very left wing, and I don't hate them. I love them, and I kind of understand them. And
it's also a 14-year-old girl. She's just finding her way,
and she's going to go through a lot of phases.
David, my
granddaughter did some feminist slam poetry at age 13.
Amazing.
And I thought to myself, this could be problematic, but I let it go, and actually, it was pretty good.
Yeah, no, let them be them. And the kernels of wisdom, David once said something, he said, he said, children are deaf, but they see everything. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you can walk up to a 13 or 14-year-old and go, blah, 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 blah. And that's what they'll hear. They'll hear blah, 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 blah. But they see your example. They see, you know, people being good. They see Christina, your example of we all disagree maybe on many things, but that's politics.
Right.
We're family.
But this is
we
life.
love each other.
And this is love, and this is just have fun.
Just bite your tongue, and you know.
And my 14-year-old self, I had a pixie cut and purple hair and a nose ring. Like,
whoa!
I had a poster of Mao Zedong. I don't know what I thought Mao is.
I had
cool.
a perm.
Oh, that's kind of that's worse.
You know what they called me? At that point, I was short and really skinny, like really underweight, not in a good way. And
what do you mean not in a good way? There's no.
No. When you're 12 and you're, and I got a perm. I think I was in 8th grade, and I went to school the next day, and they called me Q-tip.
Oh God. Oh, that's harsh.
Anyway, yeah, that kid is dealing with so many worse things.
I would just love her and adore and find things that that are irresistible about her.
Exactly. Is there anything else? So I think that's it, right?
That's it.
Next week, we're going to be interviewing Irshad Manji.
Fantastic. And if you don't know her, it is such a treat. She's going to be your favorite author and interpreter of all things. She's a gay Muslim.
A gay Muslim. And then we have another fantastic lineup.
And we're going to have Nicholas Christakis, and everyone is talking about his book, Blueprint. It's already close to the New York Times bestseller list. It's called Blueprint, The Evolutionary Origins of a Good Society. It is supposedly the most beautifully written book and affirmative and serious science about human nature.
Well, that's great, because we're going to keep surprising you. That's what we do here on the Femsplainers.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to the Femsplainers. Stay with us by following us on Twitter and Facebook at Femsplainers and on Instagram at Femsplainers Podcast. You can always email questions and comments to contact@femsplainers.com. We read every one.
We are part of the E1 Network and record at the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, D.C. And thanks to AEI Research Assistant Zoe Appler, who is our production assistant here in the studio, and thanks to Nat Frum, our audio and video editor, and occasional millennial mansplainer.
And listen to us on pretty much any of your favorite podcast platforms. And please remember to subscribe and like us at iTunes if possible. Every like helps us keep our solid 5-star rating. Cheers.